Hong Kong now, which is witnessing tensions of its own for about 4 months now. And clashes between the pro-democracy protesters and police personnel continued over the weekend as well. The protests now in their 4th month. Chinese President Xi Jinping has now reacted, saying that any attempt to try and divide China will end in shattered bones. The statement comes as a rare warning from the president. To quote him, anyone attempting to split China in any part of the country will end up in crushed bones and crushed bodies and shattered bones. And any external forces backing such attempts dividing China will be deemed by the Chinese people as pipe dreaming. Beijing continues to face a political challenge as its tightening grip over the region unravels. The fresh protests now posing a direct threat to the Chinese president, who is known to not have tolerance to differing views. China has always maintained the stance that Hong Kong is a part of the country.
We must remain committed to the strategy of peaceful reunification and one country, two systems. We will maintain long-term prosperity and stability of Hong Kong and Macau, advance the peaceful development of cross-strait relations, unite the whole country, and continue to strive for the complete unification of our country.
Hong Kong's protests started in June against proposals to allow extradition to mainland China for trials. Former British colony Hong Kong returned to Chinese rule under the one country, two systems formula in the year 1997. While the Hong Kong Chief Executive, Carrie Lam, has withdrawn that bill, demonstrations continue, including demands for greater autonomy. As Xi Jinping is all ready to convene a high-level Communist Party meeting later this month, critics believe that the never-ending protests could lead to a more stringent response from China. A military intervention by the mainland to end the protests could be the last resort. While such a response could be a show of China's might, it could potentially destroy the Chinese president's global reputation and also hamper any further attempts to assimilate Hong Kong into the mainland. For now, China continues to maintain the stance that the Hong Kong police force is adept at handling the situation. This comes even after Carrie Lam's failure to implement emergency laws to curb the violent protests. And Erin Hale has been tracking the very latest on the ground. The scenes have been telling us of the tensions that continue to escalate there between the protesters and the police personnel. Erin, you have been speaking to the protesters on the ground for quite some time now. Give us a sense of how they have reacted so far to the tone and tenor of that statement that was issued by the Chinese president.
Sure. Well, tonight, actually, the big focus here is on the United States government. They're hoping that the U.S. Congress will pass the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act. Thousands of people did come out tonight after work to take part in those demonstrations. So even with Xi Jinping's warnings, it seems like many of them will still continue to come out and protest, and they aren't taking it as seriously, perhaps, as he may have wanted.
Not as seriously as they might have wanted, but you know, you've been studying the very dynamics of the protest movement for months now, ever since they erupted. How do you see and assess the statement that was issued by the Chinese president? It's a rare warning, and at the same time, it talks about ramifications and consequences which have not been hinted at so far.
Yes, it is a rare warning. We have seen a few statements from the Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office in Beijing, but this is really the first one just from Xi Jinping. It follows up a lot on what China has said previously about issues with Hong Kong, Tibet, Xinjiang. They're all issues of its own sort of sovereign territory and territorial integrity. I think he's really signaling as well to foreign powers to stay out, particularly the U.S. and the UK, which have been some of the most vocal in the protest movement. The protests, I think, if the Chinese government does need to call in, the army, or they want to send in special forces, it seems less and less likely now. Many people believe the protests are de-escalating for the moment. We have seen fewer numbers on the streets in recent weeks. They're probably not going away completely, but it's not the same kind of momentum and fury that we saw maybe 2 months ago.
All right, we're going to leave it there for the moment. Erin Hale getting us the very latest from Hong Kong.